what does this statement from Brad really means? Throttling the growth of ODL. Why are they doing it? Is it positive or negative for XRP price? Now we have that question. And what does this explanation means? How does it connect with recent updates in the entire ecosystem? A lot of questions need to be answered and it has to be clarified. They are all talking about something special here. Let's listen to this.
Than the thinking that we find today. A lot of what we find today with a lot of the reform proposals amounts to tinkering with the plumbing of an existing system rather than thinking about how could we redesign the system from the ground up and not have many of the problems that we have today in the first place.
That's while talking about the financial ecosystem, building something from ground up because we don't want to tinker with the existing plumbing. Whew, that's cool. So that's all about generating a new infrastructure and moving into it. And they are comparing it with Great Depression. If you saw that, they are comparing it with the Great Depression of 1930s. And that is being compared with the current event, 2020 economic crisis. And when Craig states this here at the bottom, they are going to expand on demand liquidity into different jurisdictions and then all over the world. This is something which can be directly connected into that, moving into a new infrastructure, because we don't want to tinker with the old plumbing. You really have to understand that. And then other recent updates which we previously went through directly connects with this. If you look at that, Ripple, Swift, one platform going in, and then this one here, Ripple, Swift, Microsoft and other giants getting in for something similar. So when we see all these recent updates, we actually have to understand these can all be connected together, and that kind of clears many questions. But we will have to go through others to understand what it really is happening now. Welcome to the Scientific Investor channel, where we discuss crypto and science behind investing regularly. If you saw value for your time, please do support the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. If you would like to extend your support, you can use the Patreon and PayPal link in the description below. Now, when you guys see these kind of stuff, like say 60 million XRP being moved in different exchanges using different players, you really have to look at the possibility of a price drop. Now, when we say that and look at this chart, this is a daily chart, and if you actually compare with this particular scenario here, these two areas, you can see that the price actually went to the downside first, then a 3 candle went to the back, which kind of reached the mother candle's top area, and then it was being pushed down. Boom, it came back to the bottom and broke that bottom, made a new bottom there. Now what we are seeing is something similar here. If you focus, you can understand we are making something similar. Now if we don't manage to move above this current range of 0.275 to 0.278 or break above and reach above 0.28, then the chances are that we may get rejected from this level and then come back to 0.25. Now why 0.25? Because by that time we would be handling again this as a support, and the moving average on a daily would be acting as a support. Now if we turn that chart onto a 3-day chart and look at it, if that is happening, then you can understand that the price would be reaching back to the 20-day moving average on a 3-day chart. Now that was the case which we talked in a daily chart, and comparing it with the 3-day chart, you may get a bounce from the MACD here. Now if it is bouncing, that's a good thing. We would be bouncing from this 0.25 level to the upside. But if it is getting crossed like this, if you zoom out and focus on a weekly or a day 3-day chart, like, okay, let's put this into weekly first, and then it's not clear. Instead, yeah, let's focus on the 3-day chart itself. So if you actually look at the 3-day chart and the crosses of MACD, now you focus here. When the MACD crossed the bottom here, the price went to the downside. One scenario. Second, again the price went to the downside. Third, again the price went to the downside. So if we are crossing to the downside, potentially we may drop. But the difference from all these events, these 3 events, and the current if it is crossing now, is that the price is above the 200-day moving average. Now, if you focus here, it went till that 200-day moving average, got rejected, it came down here, we went above that, and now we just broke below that, and it looks like we are still above that 200-day moving average. If we manage to close here, we are still above the 200-day moving average, which would be a cool thing because it's on a 3-day chart, and if we are above the 200-day moving average, it should act as a support. So even if the MACD is to cross to the downside, the price may not go much down. Now, when we say that, do understand we also have a long term resistance trend line which we broke. So even if we are going to the downside, possibility looks like we may still get a bounce around 0.25. We zoom in, as we talked about the case in a daily, if we are going to go back to the 0.25, we may find the resistance there. Now, if we look at a daily chart and look at the run up from this bottom of 0.19 towards the top of 0.32, you can understand that we retraced around 0.5, and that 0.5 retracement is being supported by the 50-day moving average. So that's a cool thing on a daily. So we now has a support. Now that candle, I prepared this chart when the current candle was not printed there. Now if you look at the current candle there and analyze it, the chances are it's making the price action looks like the possibility is there to break up if we manage to go above. Now, if we don't, we can actually come back to the bottom. Now, when we also look at the scenario here that this millions of XRP is being transferred, we should actually understand, is it a preparation to drop? Because the 60 million is like, addition of many different transfers, right? So if you look at this, 16.5 million XRP being transferred at one end, then 10 million XRP from another, 20 million XRP from another, 13 million XRP from another. So all of these are being combined and stated as 60. But these are all different wallets from which XRP is being transferred. So the chances are that the price, based on if they are smart money and creating these patterns, it's usual that we follow history. Now, this is the recent history which we can compare it with. And what we can see is the price may go back here. But unless we manage to break above 0.27 and close above real, say around 0.28, that chances can be invalidated. Now, we went through different articles, tried to understand these stuff, right? So what it really means for throttling growth of global XRP remittance platform. Why? Now, if you read the statement made by Brad, it states the company has actually throttled the growth because one of the things that's important when using on-demand liquidity is you have to have really good liquidity on both sides of the transaction. Now, that is a great point. Now, if you compare that with the statement from Craig, you should be getting some more reliability there. Here, they are talking about liquidity begets liquidity. One thing, I think the success begets success. So the market where we are seeing that, so automatically they are looking at the Mexican corridor, Philippines corridor and all. So we are going to replicate that and grow that footprint and improve people's life in multiple jurisdictions, not just Philippines, Europe, Mexico, but all around the world. So if you go back and look at what Brad is stating here, it is clear that if you are opening a corridor, say to a new jurisdiction, without that much liquidity, say for example, I can connect it with Indian corridor, which is the highest remittance area, right? Which should be the highest remittance corridor for on-demand liquidity when they look at Middle East, Europe, US and all. But the issue would be if they are opening that particular corridor, say which has a high demand of liquidity, and they can't provide that liquidity on both end of that transaction, the transaction time would be too high. It won't be 3 seconds, and if the liquidity is not high, they can't actually meet the requirement of the customer taking that buy in and get out immediately. They can't actually provide that at the best price. They can't offer that cool FX rate, which they would be able to do if that liquidity is present there. Now, when we say that too, you have to consider if that is happening, say giant transactions are going towards India, just for an example, the liquidity would be making the network congested because that liquidity is small, and at the same time you have live corridors like Philippines, Mexico and all. So what they are looking at is increasing the liquidity. Now, what you have to understand is if they are not going to enter into giant markets because of lower liquidity, and they want to increase liquidity, there are two options. One, get into other small corridors, which in turn would increase the liquidity, like Craig states here, liquidity begets liquidity and the success begets success. So you can get into small corridors which doesn't need huge liquidity to process those payments and bring in new money in through that corridor, increase the liquidity, and you can increase the liquidity like that. But it would be a slow growth, slow organic growth. The other way which they can do that is increase the liquidity by the price of XRP. If say the price of XRP is going to the upside, automatically the liquidity in the XRP ecosystem increases. Say for example, when the price of XRP was in last all-time high or about $1, $3, $2, the liquidity in the XRP ecosystem is so high. Why? Because the process of payments and remittance are not being executed in XRP. It's being executed from fiat to XRP, then XRP to fiat. So even if the fiat is depreciating against XRP, that doesn't matter because they are transferring from a fiat to another fiat. So that's cool for XRP ecosystem, even though it's bad for the entire fiat currencies, because we would be appreciating in price against the fiats, right? If you are invested from Philippines, Europe, Mexico, it doesn't actually matter. The price of XRP is going to the upside. That means fiat is being depreciated against XRP and liquidity in that ecosystem is increasing. Now, when we look at these stuff and consider all of factors which happened near, say, this was published on August 6th, and it shows like, there is a giant partnerships coming up, or at least the new infrastructure in which they would be working together. Now, this was back in May and shows Swift, Microsoft and all going in with Ripple, right? So that's also another good point, cool point to understand. Now, at the same time, if you understand from that interview, Brad, the CEO of Ripple, also stated that when the interest rates are going like this, it's actually a cool thing, a good thing actually for crypto industry as well. Why? See, if the interest rate is getting to zero or below that, like a negative interest rate, if you look at the European area, say, some countries like Australia, New Zealand, I don't know, you can see 0 to negative interest rate there. That means if you're putting your money in your bank, now this would be familiar for those who already have that, but for those who are listening to this from a different region, like say some of the countries in Asia like India and all, they would be getting 6 to 7% interest rate on their deposit, right? So they would be like surprised, oh, I won't be getting interest rate from the bank, and instead I'll have to pay the bank to keep my money. Now, from those who just listen to that from US and all, you have to understand, even though in India you are getting 6 to 7% in interest rate, the inflation of that country is also 6 to 7%, around 7%. So that really doesn't actually make any sense. But the common man doesn't have that financial education. He still will be running behind that 6 to 7% interest rate. Now, when the educated one, meaning the financially educated guys, understand that the interest rates are going down, there is no benefit in keeping your money in the bank, or else you will need to pay more. You would be looking at alternative investments. Now, that won't only be crypto, but it can also be crypto, right? So even if it's 1, 2, 3 or 5% of portfolio coming out into crypto from different individuals, that would be a new wave, right? A new flow of money into the crypto ecosystem. Now, I would like to highlight this tweet from Real XRP Boy. Now, this has a lot of value in it if we focus and understand on that. This, yes, it happened back in 2017, so it's like 3 years old, but still, if you really understand that, they are talking about the fundamentals of XRP didn't get 20x better in the past 2 months. So either it was undervalued then and it's overvalued now, or both. So that happened, you have to understand, on 2017, right? By the end of 2017 and early 2018, you can see that the price of XRP went even higher than that. Now, if you are looking at all of these fundamentals and then looking at the price of XRP, what do you actually think? Is it undervalued asset or is it overvalued? As an investor, when would you be looking at buying some asset? Will it be something when it is undervalued, or would you actually jump in when the price of that asset is overvalued? Personally, I won't actually do that. So anyway, That's a simple question for which you'll have the answer with you, right? So, but they'll try and maybe they will, but there is still huge underserved area, right? Payment spaces, and we'll target those, and they are really targeting here. Now that was 3 years before, and now you can see that they are targeting that area, they're implementing, and they are successful, right? So their targets are on point, and the knives which they are throwing are, being struck correctly on that point. Now they are pinpointing that, and we have a lot of smart people with quite a few tricks up our sleeve. Now that was back in 2017, and now if you look at their entire human resources, the workforce, it's coming from giant institutions, governmental departments. The experience of those guys coming in are actually providing that aspect. Now when we just saw that the event of Great Depression, they are matching it with that and saying we need a new plumbing for the financial system. Look at what's happening around you. Bloomberg tweets this out and shows Gulf states are headed deeper into deflation as the coronavirus pandemic hit the economics. Now if you look at the Gulf states, the issues with them would be, majority of those guys living in that country will not be their nationals, right? Because they don't actually provide you with citizenship and all. If you're there, you won't get PR and all first thing. And then it's majority of expats. Say it would be, if you look, it would be Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, a lot from around the globe. But if you look at, say, like UAE, you'll find that it's majority from India and precisely from my state, Kerala. A lot of guys are working there. Now, due to this economic crisis, the health crisis kicked into an economic crisis. A lot of them are losing their jobs. They are finding them in difficult place. The salaries are going like 50%. The salary is being cut 50%, 30%, 20%. If you can't accept, you are out. If you want to stay, accept it. So it's a chance. So automatically the inflated economy in that region is being depleted. Now when that is happening, they're all looking at the cases of entering into a digital era, into a new plumbing, as we just listened here, right? That's from the IMF. And then we understand that China, the authoritarian state, just launched their retail CBDC, and as it was getting a huge attention, it just withdrew it, meaning they are ready to roll that out, but they were just trialing that. Still, their technology is ready to go, but they didn't actually want to get that much of attention at the first stage. But this is kind of a hint too, meaning we are ready. Are you? Towards a question, looking at the soft war or the Cold War between US and China, and you are the West and China, they are really heading there. And now the spear of China is being sharpened to the end that they can stab immediately. They can throw that directly into the throat. So US and others are also preparing. Now this from Michael sent me this one, and he actually shows this, like Ishu Prasad, a professor at Cornell University, believe that even though China's digital yuan, which we just talked about, enhances the fiat currency's role in the international payment space, it won't actually kick US dollar status as dominant currency. Now why can that, or how can that happen, or why is that statement even valuable? Now if you consider that at one point, say the digital dollar is coming out and dollar is staying there as dollar, but not as a reserve currency, but as a dominant currency. There is a difference between that. Reserve currency will be changed when you enter into a digital era, because you can't use your fiat to change into another fiat, because that's kind of shittier idea, unless one state is going to believe the other state, one bank is going to believe other bank and all. So that won't actually come soon. But if you have a neutral bridge asset, that status of reserve currency is changed, but the dominant currency remains, right? So that possibility there is kind of cool for what we are looking at. Then this one, federal agencies turning into blockchain for its benefits. Now when we saw here that we are going to change into a new infrastructure, meaning every guys who would be touching those financial points should have this infrastructure, and this one clarifies that one, right? Everyone is entering that space. Now that's from one region, and this is from another. ECB's Christine Lagarde back in January stated that we want to develop digital currencies, but we are not discouraging private initiatives. Why? The government entities majority are slow. Innovation mostly come from the private side. So the private sector generating these kind of stuff is really cool, right? Yeah, it's really cool to see, you know, everything in green, but you know, that doesn't actually matter. When you look at the chart, it shows a different story, right? Anyway, now looking at the general aspects, Bitman Bang, among other 21 Bitcoin mining farms, stripped of energy perks in Mongolia. Now we just saw about events in China happening last week, and now it's in Mongolia. So if you're eating energy while the entire economy or the world is looking at sustainable green future, you know, it's not going to end up well. And that's not just my opinion, it's really happening around the world. And then if those kind of projects, you know, when they, if you remember, I showed you a triangle in which you know, how the governments, corporates and all look at crypto. It's like one end is security, another end is scalability. So if you don't have that scalability and the security, no one is going to use that. See, Ethereum Classic has suffered its third 51% attack this month. This one reorganized over 7,000 blocks, nearly double that of first two. Whoa. So you don't actually want to enter into something which is going to kick you out in that manner, right? And now this is not directly related to that one, but it connects with this one. If we are really entering into a great recession, meaning a great depression, even bigger than 1930 or something similar to 1930, this has to be rolled out from the government side. Otherwise, you know, it would be writing everywhere. Germany is set to trial universal basic income. Now, if you have heard about Ike and Ike's video previously, you would already have an idea about what is happening. Now, it's not just what, I'm not endorsing its statements, but if you hear or listen to him and then do your own research into different aspects which he's explaining, you can understand that. You just have to find those books, articles, government websites and read it. You'll find something is, you know, really cooking inside. Now, as this happens, it won't be only in one country, it automatically would be spiraling out into different nations. Because we are entering into or you can also state, we need to enter into a new financial ecosystem, and for that we need to make this. In US, you can see that first stimulus, second stimulus, they are looking at the third stimulus, blah blah blah. Stimulus, meaning you are being supported by your government. So government can now say that no, we funded you guys, that's why we have this much liability. Now we have to back this liability, and for that we'll have to enter into a new infrastructure, financial infrastructure. So that's all being justified. Hope you guys actually understand how we are moving into a new financial infrastructure. Now, this can be good for some, bad for some, but being an investor, you should always target that positive side, right? Anyway, cool. So guys, that's all for today, and if you saw value in the content, do support the channel, hit that like button and subscribe button if you haven't done that yet. If you would like to extend your support for the channel, the research executed here, you can use that Patreon and PayPal link in the description below. Patreon especially will allow you to get more value for your portfolio. Not everyone would be having same assets in your portfolio. You can discuss that with me if you would like to, and get more charts set up for all different assets which you have in your portfolio. Now you can just go into the Patreon and check what are the perks which you'll get by offering just, you know, $0.3 a day, $0.5 a day. That's it, right? So it's up to you. If you want to get into that, you can check that Patreon link in the description below. I'll meet you guys on the next video. Bye for now.